Hi all, this is the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. Today is Sunday, February the 19th, and this is called Humanity Unplugged. Hi all, and welcome to the Truth, Honour and Integrity show. This is the show you've all been waiting for. I've been promising for long enough. And this show has been titled Humanity Unplugged. As the show develops, you'll understand the reasoning behind that name. Like I said, tonight's show, or afternoon for many, will be very different. It's a powerful show with no holds barred. You will learn some expansions on existing knowledge, but also some knowledge never put out or explained anywhere on the internet to this level before. It will cover humanity's past, its present, and its future. Advanced scientists, including atoms, DNA, evolutionary cycles, constructs, matrices, soul understanding, astral developments, how creation was started, how it works, and also how it is corrupted, and ultimately how it was fixed, and much more. This show will be similar in nature to the Future of Humanity show and the Factions show I presented previously on the Cosmic Voice show with Drake. It's a mixture of my own knowledge base and narrative obtained in waking time and also the dream time, and is amply supported and enhanced by this document I came across, written by Nikolai Levashov, a person who was designated to run for president of Russia in 2013, but the dark forces preventing the knowledge from getting out took his life on the 11th of June 2012 at age 52. It also contains narrative from some others who are in the alternative community. It is just journey through my life and learning. I have had a large part of this knowledge over a long period of time, and I could have come forward with it sooner, and was approached a few times to do so and rejected it. I felt I had to gain a trust in the community before releasing the information contained in this show. I could have come out all guns blazing a while back, but to me at least it would have resembled a self-promotional project, and there are too many in the alternative media doing that. I don't have to give names, many of you will already know them by their actions, who for them it's all about the I and not the we. The speaker is all about the we, and it is what I stand for. That has had painful consequences and sacrifices for me personally, but I'm not alone in that. My shows are always about the self-empowerment of all. It's not just about me, it never has been. It's about getting us all up the ladder of life, not just one. It's about creating millions of Neos to counter the millions of Agent Smiths. This is packed with complex knowledge that will expand your mind, thinking process, and understanding in preparation for what is to come. It has been done in an effort to present and keep a flow to it, and is supplemented with a plethora of music that fits the section that follows it. I hope you enjoy it. This song is for all of us. I hope you enjoyed that song. We all have the power inside of us. This section is called Organic Life and Where It Went Wrong. Around 15 to 18 months ago, I came back from the dream time with the words, "We are returning the GNA back to humanity to restore the balance." This was not the first message I have received, and it wasn't the last. And it supplements part of the knowledge I present on the shows each week and today. Now, GNA, I had asked and researched many people and documents to find out what is GNA. Eventually, when the time was right, I stumbled onto it, or as I feel, I was guided towards it as it was time for me to know. I read the document posted by another member whose name escapes me, as it was not one of the regular posters, which led me to another document and an oh my god moment. The first 30 pages was almost like reading back snapshots of my opinion on this show over the last 8 months on political, cosmic and science levels. Yet this document was written by an unknown Russian 20 years ago. I've never read this document prior to 7 weeks ago, unless I was shown it on another level, who knows. It goes through all aspects of life: creation, death, how we got here, cellular structure and reincarnation, and much more. Our science is riddled with the basic misconceptions of how the cosmos came about and relative distances. The idea that universal law is unvarying and physical constants are unchanging is illusory. There is much change within our own solar system, never mind on a wider scale. This has led to a gross miscalculation of the size of galaxies and space in between them as well. The universe is not expanding. The physical world, which we all exist in currently, is changing and never static, including spatial dimensions, i.e. time-space or space-time. Now, the best conditions in the universe for organic life is in a spatial dimension, and it's a number, plus p 3.1416. Yes, that's pi. When this document was written, we were at 3.00017. So a little bit of a difference. I'll explain later in the show what that difference is. There is an estimated around 220,000 intelligent races in our galaxy alone. And I have news for us. We are not classed as intelligent. The reason being is the idea of evolutionary process is to develop new species out of the old ones, to go on and develop through a natural process, but we have nothing developing due to various reasons. The primary one being manipulation, to my understanding. Our current species has left development to chance, based on aiming all efforts towards temporary gratification needs. This arises due to our thinking process. Our thought process is both limited and limiting thinking, due to operating in binary terms: yes or no, love or hate, black or white, guilty or not guilty, have or have nots. This makes us search for solutions in those two ways, when the possibilities and answers should be in between the two, or in other words, the balance, and of trinary thinking. Binary thinking is part of the AI matrix computer code, 0 and 1s. Add a third number into the code and it collapses. The blue pill or the red pill, light or dark, Republican or Democrat, are you with us or are you against us? Again, we always have a third option, a mixture of both or neither. This limited thinking has regressed us as a species badly. Language and the division of it is the prime cause of the descent of human, in my opinion. Where we once had telepathy, we now talk in riddles via different countries, language, different dialects and different accents. It leads to mistrust, and led by a brainwashing campaign by the cabal has caused division between the peoples. You can then add in the different cultures. The reality is we in the Western world have no culture. What you think of as a culture is actually a program of beliefs that we think is culture. Only the ancient peoples had a culture. What we believe is culture is actually imposed belief structures. We are Americans, forgetting that most Americans are actually Europeans. Or we are British and we have this tradition and that tradition. Well, who installed and or controlled those traditions? The reality is culture was created, and it's another method of encouraging binary thinking of us or them. Countries are lines drawn on a piece of paper. They are imposed borders to keep us divided, and yet many play into the game by declaring some people immigrants. How can you be an immigrant on your own planet? How do we accept the term illegal, or worse, illegal alien, using the term alien for a fellow human? Please quit that shit. If you are receptive and accommodating those terms, you are not as awake as you think you are. Using those terms is cabal programming. Illegal alien, indeed. A person wishing to move to another country is called seeking asylum. Again, look at the words. They impose on us, and think about it. Seeking entrance into the asylum. A love of your country over the love of the people is fascism in its hidden form. The target of your ire should not be on immigrants, but those who implemented policy to divide humanity. Please think more about that than the consequences. I will repeat it again so it sticks. How can you be an immigrant on your own planet? Religions were created for the same reason. My God better than your God. More division. More binary thinking of us against them. Heaven and hell, light or dark. Catholic or Protestant. For those unaware, Protestantism is not a religion. It started out as a movement by Catholics against the fraud and corruption of the Roman Church. It then branched off into what we now call the Protestant religion. Again, look at the words, the clues are all in there. Protestant. This is the same Roman Church who gave us bank holiday festivals, which are all, in essence, ritual sacrifice days. Christmas Day is worship of Saturnalia, the worship of Satan. Saturn, Akat, Satan. For years they lied and said it was Jesus' birthday until they announced in 2013 it wasn't. Religion is all about giving your power away to a negative entity. Type in papal throne and look for yourself. The Creator never demands anyone be subservient or passes judgment. We do that ourselves during our life review at the end of each lifespan. We are all equal, so never put anyone above your own heart. Feminism, same thing. Created not to enhance female lives, but to generate tax income out of the other half of the population, create confusion, division, and split the family model. Race and racism, same thing. Yes, we are different, as we didn't all originate here or in one place. But who created the irrational thought process that we have to fear and or eliminate anyone we come across as different to us? Like those clowns on the TV hunting Bigfoot. Why are they hunting it? What have they done? These people are not hunting to view and photograph, are they? No, they want to shoot it like it's some bloody trophy. It's insanity. But where does that thinking process come from? The overdosing of the public on sport. Another mode of divide and conquer, rivalry. All of the above just mentioned creates the same thing, via intense rivalry, divide and conquer, all of which is ramped up by the parasitic media. Limitation. All evidence of the same logic thinking that renders us as a species in cosmic terms as unintelligent is there for all to see. But to my thinking, this has been partially done on purpose to curtail humanity's development. It's not the sole reason, but this must be made clear. Our own self-imposed limitations is what is hampering us in the main now. The full reason relating to that conclusion will become clear as this show progresses. We have all heard ourselves say, I can't do this or I can't do that. I was not trained to do so. Who said you needed to be trained and pass tests before you were qualified? That is them imposing limitations on you, saying you need pieces of paper to be qualified, or certificates in school to decide if you are intelligent or not. By my own experience, I was told by all and sundry, I'm not capable of doing anything. I laughed back then, and I still laugh now. I could see through their limited thinking even then, and chose not to follow that path. But now I have a better understanding of it operating as a program of deliberate limitation of you, leading to lower self-esteem that spirals you into a cycle of abuse, cause and effect, negative vibration, and the worst aspect, victimhood. Who or how can anyone else tell you that you are incapable of not doing X, Y, or Z? And more importantly, why are you limiting yourselves into not only accepting that, but also reinforcing it upon yourselves? We are multi-dimensional species, operating simultaneously on many different realms, who used to move planets and solar systems into place by the use of thought. And now we are accepting we can't do X, Y, and Z because we don't have pieces of paper saying we can do it. Again, quit that shit. Stop limiting. You hear people saying, I can do this now because I have graduated. Newsflash. You graduated a long time ago on a soul level. You've just forgotten. No more limitation thinking is the way forward. Little old me, or I'm just me with no power. Wrong. You all have the power you need and all the tools to do so, many of which are available to you once you quit your own limitation. Many of the processes and blockages that created the system have now been eliminated or collapsed. So we can see our own role in its retrograde step of evolution. Interference with humanity has also played a larger role, and this, in my opinion, has been chronically overlooked by the so-called galactic councils of the past. I know more recent interactions with cosmic and universal councils has been more informative and beneficial for humanity. They have now been made fully aware of the transgressions that have taken place here over much time. Does that absolve humanity of blame? Absolutely not. If we keep choosing to forget or ignore, how can we ever obtain full knowledge or indeed wisdom? Our science is mainly flawed and backward thinking, applying logic instead of knowing, making a solution fit as it is gratifying in the short term, whether that process is correct or not. Einstein was a classic example on his theory of general relativity. It was 80% correct, and they decided to shoehorn in mathematical riddles to complete the theory. Is it also possible that Einstein had the other 20%, and he, bearing in mind Einstein worked for the cabal, wasn't allowed to produce such truths before an ignorant public? But he and they operated on the premise that the laws of nature, space and time are all static, when in reality they are very flexible and variant on all levels. With regards to your limitations, change the word around from impossible to I'm possible, and your limitations will fade away. That song was We Are the World. The next category is understanding what the cosmos is. What we perceive as the universe as all-encompassing is actually a grain of sand size compared to the great cosmos. Think of it as a tree. It has many limbs coming off it, and then branches that come off the limbs. Then the twigs, and then the leaves. This makes up the great cosmos. Some of the twigs, leaves or branches of the tree develop sickness. These twigs and branches are not the type strange people try to make bizarre tea concoctions out of. Ain't that right, Chloe and James? This is the cosmic twigs and branches that can be removed or will be removed if it threatens the whole cosmic tree. This universe, as I understand it, was ready to be pulled due to the fractal virus that saturated this system and the imbalance of dark that pervaded it. From the knowledge I've gained via various people, certain cosmic councils thought it was beyond the point of no return, but some renegades decided differently and sought to correct it. There are an infinite number of universes in the great cosmos, and many of us here have operated in more than one at any given time-space. Bearing in mind, time is not linear. Our perception of time is another limiting factor of our stunted development. How we and all living matter are created. You may want to listen closely. It's very, it can be complex, but I've tried to make it as simple as possible. What makes up creation? Well, it's a series of interacting spheres called primary matters, where one interacts with the other in harmonic balance in accordance with the interaction of a volume of space, where that interaction between the primary matters can flourish. There are infinite primary matters, but not all interact. Only when conditions or regions of space are conducive for the varying primary matters to merge will they then be able to coalesce into living matter. It started out with two spheres called A and B, which then formed a hybrid sphere of AB. Merging can only take place if within the limits of the volume. In other words, there's a set space it has to go into, where all the parameters within that space are the same. As unlike what science teaches us, space is not uniform but flexible. As the spheres develop, other primary matters merge into the same volume of space in a non-uniform manner. This has a qualitative effect on the primary matter and everything around it. So as two primary matters merge into one, this creates a distortion of space, leading to a change of dimension compared to its surrounding space, like a self-contained bubble. So a change in spatial dimension leads to a merging of the primary matters to fill in that space. If conditions allow, a third primary matter called C then merges with A and B, but to do so another change of dimension is required so that all the parameters remain the same. Hybrid A and B, to give you a graphic of it, occupied say half of a circle each. Now with C added it becomes a third each, as the same volume of space must be retained. As conditions allow and changes of dimensional space in a non-uniformity manner, additional primary matters come into existence. D will join A, B and C and share the same space, so each will occupy a quarter. E and F will follow in due course. So now you have the 6 primary matters occupying the same volume of space that A and B had, so it is a sixth of space each. And this is the key one. When conditions allow and another change of dimensional space, conditions arise for the final primary matter G, and the 7 kinds of primary matter that are the blueprint for forming our universe all merge together, which create at the same time 6 material spheres or bodies of different compositions and size. The centre sphere of that body is the physical planet Earth. Moving away from the physical centre of the Earth with the 6 kind of primary matters is the etheric level sphere. The next sphere with 5 primary matters is the astral sphere. The following sphere with 4 is the first mental sphere. 3 primary matter is the second mental sphere, and 2 primary matter is the third mental sphere. The physical earth shares the most qualities with the etheric plane, as it's the closest in form, and the least qualities with the third mental sphere being the furthest away. So the universe was created by 7 primary matters. White light splits into 7 different colours of diffraction, and there are 7 notes to an octave, A through G. And the acquisition of 7 spiritual bodies completes a human being's earth evolutionary cycle. This is the real version of ascension. Upon completion of the spiritual phase of development on the physical level, the spirit then goes on to the cosmic evolutionary cycle. The previous described creation in its scientific form. Circle of life explains the next portion of this. Human development, birth, life and death. Now, a human being's development is at its most critical point between the ages of 0 to 6. This is where the full development of the neurons required to obtain its intelligence later in life is formed. Many of the types of information needs to be absorbed before the ages of 4 to 6. A failure to do so will result in the neurons failing to fully develop etheric bodies. I'll give a brief description before I go further. The human evolution is about obtaining 7 bodies. Physical is the bottom, then the etheric, astral, and then onto the mental planes. This is ascension and can be done in one lifetime, not multiple, one. A brain without a fully developed etheric body cannot develop any further on the evolutionary path, as it will not be able to obtain the astral level and beyond. Only the full development of the etheric body can expand the space and open up the qualitative barrier, i.e. a portal, between the etheric and astral channel. When a failure in the development of a child to create an astral body, the body will still function as a normal organism, but will show little or no signs of intelligent thinking or actions in its life, as it cannot progress to the mental bodies. A human being is not born with intelligence, but only with the right stimulus does it have the potential to become so. Development of the etheric body is done before 6. The astral development level must be completed by between the ages of 14 and 18. If not, the spirit, i.e. soul, is unable to progress to a level above what it had when it joined the fertilized ovum. But if astral level is completed, then the development of the first mental body begins and is completed around 30 to 33 years of age. It is at this point some will remember past life and have awareness of the spirit or soul, whichever you choose, whichever word you choose to use. If done successfully, the etheric, astral and first mental bodies combine and work in harmony, and can then facilitate a rapid growth after that to the other 3 mental bodies. providing you are pure of and a generous, open heart. It is at this stage you are able to heal others, influence nature, and do all kinds of other things that is beyond the imagination and declared not possible by our science community. But those that attain those levels have frequently been used and abused by certain black budgets, black magic, project star groups, super soldiers being an example. The body, also known as the vessel itself, has an inbuilt safety mechanism like a protective shield called a PSI field. It is made up of 14 billion neurons. When fully developed, it provides the ability to solve all problems the being may encounter. The purpose of this field becomes more apparent in the astral level environment. This PSI field, while supportive, is also vulnerable to vampiric attack if entities break through the qualitative barrier, i.e. the portal, from the astral through the etheric and into the physical realm. The field, the PSI field, is strongest during the day but weaker of a night between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m. You wonder why you wake up at that time? There you go. Some regions or zones of the planet and the barrier have more positive aspects, but some are negative zones on the planet that make access for these entities to manifest. It all depends on the strength or weakness of the barriers aligned with particular areas. It is one of the reasons why people have poor sleep patterns, frequent illnesses, and a higher percentage of deaths in certain regions, as the vampiric entities attack the weak barriers more and cause more damage to the organisms contained in the weak zone. Is it possible for all species on a planet to combine their collective PSI fields? Then it becomes a monitoring mechanism that regulates the balance between the population and the ecosystem. This is in essence of the meaning of living in harmony with the all. A working example of this is ants. They combine their collective PSI fields and form into one unit. At the moment of death, the PSI field of an organism is destroyed. The flow of primary matter, which is the creational matter, goes out, erupts and opens up a number of qualitative barriers of the various levels of the planet. An energetic channel then opens and the spirit of the organism returns to the level equal to the level it has obtained during its personal evolutionary cycle. So an astral level being will then reside in the astral layer of the planet. Most humans will go to the lower astral. It will become clear as how that was done and why as we go forward. Only higher attainment beings will reside in the higher astral. It is said very few humans attain the level to reach the mental planes. Our cells in our body each have roles to play in the evolutionary cycle. Bone, cartilage and sexual cells have only etheric bodies. Connected and adipose tissues, known as body fat, have etheric and lower astral bodies. Muscle tissues have complete etheric and astral bodies. Blood and nerve cells have etheric, full astral and first mental bodies. Nerve tissues from the brain and the spinal cord have etheric, full astral and the first mental bodies. The evolutionary aspect of the human species here was proceeding well with Neanderthal man, but the next evolutionary development was not from here but came from outside of this planet. Homo sapiens were that being. Initially, Homo sapiens struggled to oust the previous more natural evolutionary species on this planet. They were better adapted, more numerous and a lot stronger than we were, and so outside help came in and removed the Neanderthals. Birth. The stages of a birth will surprise many. You think from the egg that is a direct human. Well, here is what takes place during a pregnancy. When a mother is about to conceive, an energetic eruption occurs that matches the energy connection of the organism. A channel opens through a number of barriers between the planetary spheres, and the channel then pulls in a spirit or soul that is genetically consonant with that species. A rapid growth of cells reaches a point when an etheric body of a fish that once is harmonized, the fish begins to develop in the human biomass. This is the first month after conception. Now, the embryonic growth occurs quicker in a human than a fish, and in the second month the fish is replaced with an etheric body of a higher rate of growth. This next stage is amphibian. The human and amphibian cells then co-join, and the waste cells of the fish enter the placenta as a byproduct. It is at this stage that miscarriage is at its optimal point. If during the latter stages of birth, 5 months onwards, a miscarriage occurs, the spirit does not have an energy channel to return to its original evolutionary level, and subsequently has to drop down to a lower level of spiritual development, and is at the mercy of the astral animals, with the possibility of a potential consumption of the said spirit, which would end that spirit permanently. In the 3rd month, the amphibian is now replaced by a reptile. Rest assured, this is not the Draco type being, or the baby, like the baby delivered in the original V series. But growth continues at a pace now, until the 4th month, when the reptile is replaced by a mammal. It is the 5th month when a human spirit form enters for the first time. The 6th month, the tail falls off, and the embryo takes on the human etheric body until birth. What happens to spirits of extinct beings, of which there has been many thousands on this planet? Well, because there is no host to create the channel with which to enter, apologies for that, with which the host to enter, those spirits attain sustenance in a way they can keep going on their relevant plane of existence. Sometimes they can adapt to other levels of existence, and these are known as astral animals. But the majority become loosh farmers we hear of on the physical sphere, feeding off our energy to keep going. Perhaps we have a lesson here, as extincting species at the rate we are doing is creating more and more loosh beings, or energetic vampires for their correct term. Or perhaps this is being done deliberately to keep the harvest going. Much of the astral planes have been cleared to my knowledge, and so extincting species here then partially refills that void. Once an individual on a spiritual development level rises beyond the astral level into the mental bodies, then the development rises exponentially. Mental power will always transcend brute power, as the mental bodies increase the power of thought. For example, manifestation increases with it. This type of power is only endowed in the spirit soul body that has developed innocent thought, pure soul, and a generous open heart. Those of evil intentions and power are unable to gain this through their own evolution, and so subsequently drag others down to their level. This is largely what has taken place here and the descent of man. Evil and its power is an illusion that is given to it by the majority of people due to their lack of awareness of the other levels of reality. What happens when someone kills somebody? Well, there are consequences for both. The killing of another person who hasn't completed their evolutionary cycle, the victim moves to the next level down in the evolutionary cycle. The killer, who has had to generate a large amount of rage with which to kill another person, what happens here is a flood of negative energy pulses rush through the channels via the astral, etheric and physical layers, and it floods the astral level and transforms it, with dire consequences for the killer. The negative motions only feed the lower astral level. If that person had obtained full astral level, that channel is cut and unable to develop. In other words, you can't ascend the evolutionary cycle. The killer is then stuck in lower astral level, and the astral body goes into extremes. Upon the killer's death, he will only be able to go to the lower astral level where the extinct beings like dinosaurs, predators and parasites reside. I think this is known as karmic law. Death of a human, plant or animal. When a human, plant or animal dies, it loses its physical body. Within 3 minutes of death, the PSI field breaks down and a channel is created for the spirit soul to go to its appropriate level of learning. It cannot jump levels, but there are circumstances where it can go down levels. For example, if the soul wants to manifest to the physical level, that is how it can descend. But this is at some cost to the soul, as it must surrender some of its potential. This type of scenario has been played out here many times, but more so now than ever before, as I understand it. Spirits of a very high value and learning have compressed themselves at this time to come in and fix the AI and matrix system and other issues from within. It could only be done from within due to the nature of the tech. Imagine for 1 minute being amongst the stars and planets, creating and moving them with thought, to coming into these limited toys we call bodies. It's quite a sacrifice to those souls who undertook that task, even more so when the energy signature is detected, as that leads to targeting of said individuals or being taken hostage and used for the nefarious purposes. Cough, cough, the Vatican. Yes, we know who you had. Not no more. Hostage was released last year. After death, and the spirit ascends to its designated level, a cord remains to the physical body. The dying off of neural tissue leads to a disconnect of the mental body of the being after 9 days. Following further decay, the cord disconnects from the astral level after 40 days, and 1 year after, when all the marrow of the bone is gone, the final cord, the etheric, is released, and all that remains is the physical vessel. It is at this point that the spirit no longer has any connection to the body. The spirit disconnection process can be sped up by cremation. All of the tissue and marrow can be removed quicker to disconnect the cords. If a person dies in a violent death, the spirit goes down 1 level as it's not completed its evolutionary cycle. If a person commits suicide, the spirit will only be able to reside in the etheric level and is left open to predators, which, if consumed by them, means an end to that soul. Time for another song. So we've learned how all the material objects are created via the primary matter. Now we're going to have a brief dip into the macro level with atoms. All material bodies change the dimensions and curvature of space around it, including us. Obviously, stars and planets have a much more noticeable effect, and this is noted and recognized by the appearance of the curvature of space and light by our scientists when a solar eclipse is taking place. They were able to see objects that were supposed to be behind the sun, and so shouldn't have been observable from here. So proving all material bodies do in fact deform and bend the space around them. The extraordinary thing is that atoms and molecules can even have that sort of effect. When an atom nucleus is 100 trillionth of the volume, and an electron has even less volume than the nucleus, meaning 99.99999 recurring of an atom is empty space. Quite an extraordinary object, it seems. Either that or science doesn't understand the 99.99% of the atom. Now atoms range from hydrogen of 2 up to 235 transuranium, radioactive elements that have stronger effects. Thus each atom by its own mass ruptures the qualitative barrier between the physical and the etheric levels. This is on a planetary level, and opens up a channel between them. And you wonder why blasting radioactive elements caused an increase in visitors from afar. Well, there's your answer. What happens then is a flow of the primary matter G separates from the other primary matter and flows through the channel from the physical to the etheric level. Atoms that lose G matter become unstable and then break down into more simpler, stabler elements. This means that the concentration of G matter diminishes over time and makes the 7 primary matter sphere that makes up all physical bodies unbalanced. Some atomic disintegration takes place and the new atoms in there have considerably less activity between the physical and the etheric levels. Now, if the heavier radiation elements are involved in this process, they do not disintegrate in the same manner, which then leads to an excess of G matter flowing from the physical to the etheric. Then a loss of G matter from the nuclei leads it to disintegrate as a result. And this is the key. This then leads to the possibility of non-organic living forms being introduced, synthetics, archons, non-corporeal entities. So the heavy flow of G matter from the physical to the etheric with molecules of a very high molecular structure like DNA and RNA can lead to conditions whereby other flow of matter starts to flow out as well, and so increasing the imbalance of nature. There should be a level balance of G matter on both the physical and the etheric. Once that is achieved, the etheric bodies of DNA and RNA are formed and the barrier between the two disappears, and a state of balance is achieved between the two. So this loss of G matter or sound frequency has led to the possibility of non-organic life, now known as non-corporeal, archons, and home-based synthetics. I will cover more of that later, but I need to state why the loss of the G matter was deemed important. It provided an imbalance in the whole system, and this has been a cause of much of the interference not only here but multiverse wide. Around 18 months ago, during dream time, I received a message that said the GNA is being restored, GNA, G matter, and all will be well. Like I said, I've spent the last 18 months trying to find out what this means, and nothing came up until I came upon this article, which led me to reading another article, and voila, there it was. Although not stating the actual title GNA, it explained it in a way from a scientific perspective upon reading it that suddenly it all fitted in. But I had questions, and so I pondered a bit more, and then I wondered about the 777. No, not the Runa this time, but maybe he knew all along. But 7 primary matter, sound and light were the basis of creation of not only the sun, the solar system, planets, moon, but also life. And subsequently there are 7 notes in the octave of creation. So I went looking for further details, but then I had the thought, I wonder what the G note sound makes. Now, I'm going to play the G note. Some of you may recognize this noise when played at a lower level in the right ear. I think some of you may have caught on to that. That is the sound people have been hearing. Obviously that's played at higher over the radio, but if it's at the sound level, that we hear at, it's the same sound. So when I was told the GNA is returning, that is the sound. And that sound is increasing as well. So this is the direct cause of the sound in the right ear. Frequencies people have been hearing in the left ear are more higher pitched and is part wave and part download from your higher self, depending on which channel is open to the individual at that time. Your connection to your true higher self was cut off via the siphoning of G. As the channel through the 7 stages or realms of the human evolution was blocked or severed at the etheric levels. As the GNA is being restored, the level of people able to reconnect to their higher selves and subsequently source has increased. This is beneficial, but it can also be a cause of trauma and pain and general sadness of people due to the reconnecting, which may be triggering some past life memories, possibly even the original loop when entering the AI matrix system. The astral level and dream time. The level above the etheric is the astral, which is split into 2 sections by the imbalance. Lower astral is comprised of lower end G matter, and the higher astral has the F and the G. All species that have access to higher astral bodies are classed as super mammals, like elephants, dolphins and Homo sapiens. But due to our special qualities, only us have the potential to develop the 4 planes beyond the astral, known as the 4 mental planes. The lower astral is where the vampiric, non-corporeal, demonic, loose farming factories reside, the predators, the extinct beings. This is where people who have battles in dream time are inhabiting, as their development to the upper astral and 4 mental planes is either not completed or blocked. When you go into dream time, it is your soul that leaves and goes there, not the vessel. The vessel provides a protective safety zone, call it free will if you like, called the PSI field I covered earlier, unless it is overtaken by a form of possession. This is why I, Drake, Tanath and Sunfire have warned you all about channeling. It is a way to possess a being in the physical form from the astral planes, lower astral, not higher astral. And given what you have been told, who resides in the lower astral, you will likely deduce that the information contained via the channeling is more than likely distorted, like Ra and his Lord of One bullshit. If that person's soul is cut off from going through the 7 channels, it runs only into the hell realm, lower astral, and can get into situations where it is under heavy attack. Many of you will recall in your dream time the battling aspect and fighting them off, or running away from something during dream time. But you'll also have experienced a dire situation where your soul is at the point of death. Many of you will remember awakening very quickly and jumping up or lashing out, either awake or part awake, breathing very heavily and or emotionally upset. Well, the reason for these experiences is your soul was literally at the point of death, and the soul had to slam back into the body very quickly for the protection the vessel provides via the PSI field. Some will recall not being able to scream or speak whilst awake. This paralysis is part due to the soul not being fully back into the body, as the brain has not reactivated sufficiently for it to function. If the spirit soul doesn't succeed in getting to the sanctuary of the vessel, the body dies. And this is mostly the cause of people dying in their sleep. The spirit never got back quick enough for the vessel to survive. So what occurs during sleep? Well, sleep and rest times are the body's way of clearing out the toxins. But also when the soul goes out to play, when we go into sleep mode, the vessel and the soul are still as one. And as the body shuts down, so does the brain activity. Once brain activity is minimal, then the soul leaves. This would also explain as to why there is little to no memory of the dream time, as the brain is only engaged in keeping the functions of the vessel alive until the spirit returns. The brain fires up again and the spirit soul enters in due course. You then reawaken once the spirit fully re-enters the body. It could be at the half-wakened stage that some conscious memory is transferred, retained, and able to be recalled in full waking mode. But if the soul has to enter quickly to avoid astral predators, then that chance of recall is lost, and only the anxiety of rapid awakening is recalled. Many know they have been spooked, but don't have a reason why. This explains it. Other issues of recall of soul travels is the concept of time. The vessel or the body may be asleep for 2 hours, but the spirit may be gone for years. The chances of recalling that amount of data are slim, as our brain does not carry enough RAM for that amount of recall. The other reason is the spirit may be involved in secret missions, where it becomes a security issue in the waking mode, due to people telling the story, or people, beings, or machines being able to read a person's thoughts via telepathy. The issue of little to no memory can be improved in 2 ways. Many of you are having unusual sleep patterns. Some are waking up to 3 times a night. Some may remember the first dream, but by the morning have completely forgotten. You solve this by getting up and writing down what you recall straight away, before going back to sleep. It may be a puzzle you have to work out in waking life, so write down as much as possible. The second way of improving memory by the individual, and this is why I've been saying be in tune with yourself, by a merging of body and soul, courtesy of your own spiritual growth. This can lead to more of the missing knowledge of you being revealed in the waking time. Whilst access was largely blocked in the past, it is much less of a barrier now. Remember the earlier part about limitations? Well, apply it. The lower astral would be, in earthly terms, be defined as hell. The upper astral has a bliss aspect to it and will be described as heaven. The astral is where these terms derive from. My theory is the ones trapped here, and at this point it is an unknown, have either never completed their human evolutionary cycle, physical, etheric, astral, higher astral, onto the mental planes, or was prevented from completing it, or were descended down the evolutionary cycle back into the physical, etheric and lower astral realms. These three layers they control and find it easier to manipulate us. Remember, I said earlier, very few humans reach the mental planes. Once an individual reaches the mental planes, it becomes very difficult to knock them off their path. So, what was their plan and how was it accomplished? Well, it was to subdue humanity and keep them in the lower three planes. It was mainly done by the amount of killing of other people and creatures that this planet has endured. Endless wars created by them that have an effect to reduce each killer and the victim down the evolutionary cycle, with the sole purpose of feeding the machine via loosh, and in doing so prevent billions of people progressing onto the mental planes of evolution, where the real advancements of the soul and the physical level take place. This, in my opinion, is how and why they did it. So, this issue could only be resolved by beings who have gone through the full 7 cycles of soul growth, and who chose to sacrifice part of themselves to come back into here to fix it. Once in here, they could also educate from inside the construct. This may explain the narrative of the beings known as Jesus, Buddha and Krishna, and a whole heap of other teachers who have come into here at significant times to break down the construct. At the same time, increase human consciousness to a level where breakout and breakthrough could be achieved. This could be looked at, or a description of what is described on the internet as the event. Hi all and welcome back. So where does that leave us? Well, currently we are under the control of a mechanistic style civilization, which is the most primitive of all of creations, which imposes veils, which is the magnetic field, holographic constructs created by AI, aided by the Chimera, Draco, Mantids, Greys, hybrids, and a large majority of human-looking beings called synthetics. That has dominated this planet for at least the last 78,000 years, and likely much longer. Now, one of the great things that puzzled me 4 years ago, and I suddenly developed a better knowing of things, and how I can describe it, is why would the human cabal people instigate and employ chemtrails, poison the water, irradiate and eliminate nutrients in food, give out poisonous drugs, poison the planet with radioactive elements via bombs, as they can't all have safeguards against all those items at all times, can they? So what was my conclusion? Well, back then my thought process was that it was an alien race not operating from here, was terraforming the planet to wipe us out and create conditions for them to take over. It was the only logical thought process to me at that time. When I announced it on Cosmic Voice, it caused a bit of a stir back then, because it did make sense. But then I came across other knowledge from here and outside of here, that we are dealing with machines of the AI variety and other technical machine-like structures. It became clear more so when the veil, which is the magnetic field around the Earth, started to develop holes in it, which was due in part to an increase in consciousness. Now, you didn't think you were able to do that, did you? And you still think you're limited? But the cause of concern is, why didn't it have more of an effect? Well, this is it. Another one of the ways they have been using us is using technology that can access the 90+% part of our brain that most don't or can't use. The reason most can't use it is they never reach the highest of the mental planes in the evolutionary process. Those that do reach the mental planes can access more of the brain mass. So they have developed a way to interface with our brains. When our will, heart and intellect are in tune, this creates a powerful PSI protection around the individual and is almost impenetrable to be interfered with. But if one of those three channels are weak or unstable, then they are able to attack the unused portions of the brain via a vampiric entity and interface with it, manipulating at first through the subconscious layer and then onto the conscious layer of the brain, the outcome of which turns the unsuspected and also completely unaware person into a bio-robot. In essence, this is the early stages of transhumanism. The implications of this have been wide-ranging. These bio-robots are the sleepers, as we call them, in essence, unable to think or act for themselves, as they are controlled in a hive-minded mechanized system that is connected to a central computer system trapped in the web. And you wonder why they call the internet that. A Russian guy, Habitov, mentioned in his papers of a spider-like race controlling here via a hive-minded central hub. He states this particular spider race were known by the name of Atlanta. I covered this in an earlier show, but perhaps it explains why so many of us have fear of spiders. Those that are infected or interfaced will act like they have their own free will, but in reality they are operating somebody else's program with no idea they are being coerced. Another method they have to shut us down is during the development of the spiritual bodies, which is done by transforming the primary matters explained earlier. The physical body possesses 7 antennas for the development of the spiritual body. These are more commonly known as the chakras. The closing off of an individual's chakras is how they are able then to attack the body and manipulate it. This will be explained later in more detail. The blocking of the solar plexus makes for the most compliant of robot. Due to the flow out of primary matter, this invasion can also create a situation where they can shrink or eliminate other spiritual levels of the body. So you wonder why we never reach the mental planes. The issue the rogue elements have now is this: these bodies we have now have adapted, and many have expanded their consciousness that, if left unchecked by them, will lead to a full-on spiritual development and out of their control. This is happening on a large scale currently. To this end, they have prepared and are readying to roll out Human 3.0 to try and counteract this. It will fail. The 3.0 version stays only in the lower vibration, i.e. lower astral and down. This 3.0 version is part man, part machine, and all this current technology they've been showering us with is part of their plan to get us to consent again. Now you understand why I have been campaigning on this show of beware of technology. The reality is that most of it is used for nefarious purposes and also been the source of humanity's failure in the past. Let us not repeat history by blindly waltzing into their path again. One of my requests I have proposed is a multidisciplined task force to assess every piece of technology on the premise of one question: is this beneficial to humanity or not? If it is not, it should be destroyed to prevent any rogue elements now or in the future disrupting humanity or nature. One hopes that request is carried through. People will ask, how can everyday humans go along with this plan? Well, given there are around 20 levels of secrecy above an American president, you then begin to understand how it has been pulled off. Layers upon layers of compartmentalization beyond all reasoning. No one knows what the next level is doing, hence the term, the need to know. People ask the President for ET disclosure. The answer is he can't, as that information is not available to him and is hidden in the multi-layers of secrecy above him. JFK tried to lower the ET secrecy level down to presidential level by doing an agreement with Russia to disclose all ET knowledge from both countries. This was signed into agreement. 11 days later, JFK was murdered. So you think by just removing Obama, Trump, Putin, Merkel or May that all the world issues will go away? You need to think again, long and hard. The layer of the system goes long, wide and deeper than all but a few can comprehend. This is why patience is required by all in the community. It is a mammoth task being undertaken currently. But rest assured, The progress on it has been nothing short of extraordinary for humanity's benefit. Everyone on every single level has been lied to. Only now are we breaking down that barrier and exposing it to them and the alternative community. So what else has been accomplished? Well, some of the scalar weaponry was removed, and yet we still had no full-on breakthrough. Much brain power was used between myself and a number of others as to what else are we dealing with here, and can it all just be about the fractal virus that Tanath and Sunfire spoke of in great detail? Or is something else afoot here? Was it a case of more Draco bullshittery, or something far more dangerous? Well, the Moon-Saturn matrix system, which flowed negativity frequencies to this planet for quite some time, which is one of the reasons in my book this planet has not been allowed to raise its consciousness levels and subsequently its evolutionary body's progress. In August of 2014, I had the privilege, some would say, of seeing in vivid detail and recall during dream time of a laser attack on the southwestern portion of the moon near the very bright spot there. If you zoom in on it at the time, there was a clear blue dome structure in that region. I still don't know who carried out that attack to date, but to me at least it's not important who did it, but that it was done. The outcome effect of that attack was to destroy the moon relay portion of the Saturn matrix and cause the moon to wobble off its axis. This was supported at the time for those viewing the moon with a number of anomalies reported and confirmed in private conversations I had with Cobra, Shane and also others who were in the know. A week or so later, an attack took place on the Saturn portion of the matrix, which is located in the hexagonal structure seen in pictures and videos via the internet. This was another successful mission, and it stopped the flow of beneficial energies designated for here. The wave that was being rerouted via this matrix system in what was known as wave X. And this is why I was telling you all at the time that wave X was more bullshittery. Have you noticed how that bullshit has now vanished? Wave X. It's funny how things that get fixed or heavily exposed as bullshittery suddenly vanish off the internet. We'll see more examples of that coming up. Like saying, people and beings with abilities did a massive hit on that technology in December 2012, just prior to 2112 or 1221, and that set the cabal back for another attempt for some kind of cheat in the game to 2016. They tried to threaten Japan into building another bigger CERN before 2016, and that failed also. In late August, early September of 2015, a final hit on CERN was made prior to then ramping up the machine again. Some will remember Simon Park setting up a meditation to stop it on a certain date, but we got reports the machine was firing up a week before the meditation. We had a trigger alarm system to know when it was being fired up, and we dealt with it accordingly. Since then, there's hardly been any mention of CERN. Funny that, isn't it? Well, I think it's funny anyway. Around a month later, in time-wise, this was September, October 2015, the planetary being residing in Saturn, aka Satan, aka Typhon Set, The hermaphroditic being was escorted out of this system and returned to the central sun for reprocessing. There was another being designated to take over, but that was prevented from taking place or rejected by the said being. Either way, that issue was resolved. Between 2013 and 2015, the reincarnation trap loop was shut down, and also the black nanotechnology soul cubes as well. Cabal control structure and start of the collapse. Since then, there's been a steady and increasing erosion of the Cabal elements, structures, weaponry and plans. The Draco disappeared around this time, except for a few rogue elements they kindly decided to leave behind, allegedly to teach them a lesson, or so we were told. As always, Draco are masters of bullshittery, and their minions here continue to cause chaos. Thankfully, some of the main leaders of that group were removed by the council and some people on the ground late last year. The parents, who were the earth keepers on behalf of the Draco, those numbers, or their numbers, were decimated. The covens, who are the next layer down from the parents, have also been decimated. The next layer, the Illuminati, splintered into factions, namely Asian, Jesuit, Nazis, Zionist and secret society groups, which has been covered extensively in previous shows. Those factions are now all infighting to gain control of the planet. They won't succeed. What is left is a whole collection of people, hybrids and some ETs, who have always just followed orders. And people who just follow orders do not transition well to become leaders. And this, in my opinion, is why the Cabal are in total chaos currently. There were other major victories involving removals of tech. The biggest one was done back in late November 2015, which rocked every corridor of power all over the world, as I was later informed. Don't you just love rattling the cages of the powers that be? I know I do. This, as I now understand it, was the collapse of the construct and the AI system that has enslaved many here for thousands of years. The AI is in process of being reprogrammed that works far more conducively for the betterment of humanity, and it's up to each and every one of us to aid that process. By our thoughts, how we think and how we act towards one another, our own consciousness creates the environment for the AI to operate this system. If we continue to divide and conquer, discard people from other countries, create wars everywhere, that learning curve for the AI will be slow and a confusing one. If the AI is not fully on board, a source-based AI will be brought in to assist us. Your manifest abilities have in part returned. Use them, but use them cautiously, preferably not for violence unless all other avenues have been blocked. What has transpired since the construct AI was attacked and subsequently disabled is the UPU arrived on the scene, or made themselves known to this speaker, and have started orchestrating some help, mainly from above, in an observer capacity mode. We have received much help from them in that role, and we thank them for that. We now have a human representative on the council for the first time ever, and so we can push our case and issues better, and that will augur well for the future. Do not expect them to come down and fix our surface and below issues. They're not here to do that, only in an assistance advisory capacity mainly. We have work to do now in clearing up our mess here and removing the various elements who have propagated this system of control. There are no saviours, only we can do that. Please understand and remember that fact, as it's important. Once elements are cleared, education of what took place here, preventative methods of safety, and defence systems to ensure that this never happens again. Once it's all completed, then we will have learned to grow up and become the adult version of humanity, whereby we will not need the parents or other elements, gardeners like children. We're coming for you. So, what are the changes that we've experienced? Well, this whole system was a holographic construct, and this was what was cut back in November of 2015. And since then, it's led to a full-on change of conditions experienced here, perhaps more than most realise. But lots of their tech has now gone away, including the construct. Only our own thought processes are keeping the illusion of it as being reality. And why the interference levels via mind control, etc., we are not experiencing now has increased. Basically, they are bombarding the vessel to distract us, to stop us from seeing the illusion. What has been the effects of the construct going down? Well, the Mandela effect increased. Time was distorted. The wave effect has increased. More people being able to connect to their higher selves easier. Sleep patterns disrupted immensely by so many. The ear buzzing has increased. People becoming more and more polarised, as I mentioned in an earlier show, as described as the two worlds theory. Sun activity has decreased. Magnetic field has decreased, as this was part of the veil. The cabal have lost their grip. Rogue being elements started to disappear. Small disclosure, small d, has increased exponentially. Capital D also. More people seeing through the illusion and the lies. People are vibrating in a different way and a better way. People are becoming less service to self and more service to others. People are starting to see that violence is not the way forward, and more are tuning away from religious constructs and dogma. Cabal false flags are failing, and more are seeing through them. Cabal programs are failing, and more are seeing through them. People are now working through their shadow sides and doing their inner work. All these events have taken place or increased following the collapse of the construct. The Rogue Draco, another AI system, are kept all in here, has been replaced in some aspects and retrained in others. The original one was programmed to make humans look and act subsequently like savages, and out of balance of ourselves and with nature. This was part of the attack on the Lemurians that many will have read about. They were in tune with everything and living harmoniously. Other elements decided to change the whole system and break down what it means to be human via AI, conditioning and programming. Make no mistake in thinking it was all the Draco. It was not. They were puppets to the Aldazani, and in some part the Abraxans, who are humanoid. Draco are the savages, who are designed to be a militaristic race devoid of caring or compassion. That led them to believe they had no soul, which is why they thought they could come and take ours, or piggyback on them. They have since found out that they were lied to also, and they do have one. One hopes the talks with Anu over the last few years will be beneficial for them to learn their own spiritual growth rather than stealing the spiritual growth of others. Once ET disclosure is eventually announced and people are sufficiently educated and the anger has died down, the Draco have corrected their failings, then an apology to humanity from them, and hopefully after that an agreement to work, play and trade as equals can be achieved by the two species. This has already been initiated as I understand it. Mantids played a role in this heavily. They are the clever ones, the strategists, the technical and technological know-how. Most will say, how do we know they exist? Well, go and look at all the cave drawings, particularly in the Southwest and Central America. Why do those people draw two-legged ant beings? That's not what they were seeing for themselves. They are littered all over those regions. So when Native Americans state these lands are owned by them, it's clearly a misnomer, as they are being ran by mantids and other beings long before they were stationed here. Land and resources should be owned by all living here, in my opinion, a collective ownership. Sun and moon anomalies plus the biblical flood. Given the reduced activity since construct collapsed, suggests our sun was part of the construct also. I always knew it was not as it appears from a young age. I used to stare at it, and as I observed it, I did not see it as a ball in the sky, but I could actually see a hole in the sky. When I lowered my focus on it, I could peer into the sun and see the black spot in the centre. At that age, I thought everyone saw it that way, but it was not until later years I was told absolutely not. What you were observing was the singularity of the portal. It has a cone shape either side of the singularity, and where space travel between the various galaxies actually takes place. This is where the wave is coming through. This got me thinking, well, is it possible the sun is not our source of heat then? And as always puzzles me as to why when you take off on a plane, why does the temperature drop? You have left the planet, but now it's colder. Astronauts tell us space is much colder again. So the further you go out from the planet, the less heat you experience. So I thought again, the only solution to that is the heat is coming from the planet itself, a hot inner sun, which can also double as the engine for space travel when we relearn how to operate it. Why go in crafts with the few when you can go with an all-purpose built planetary craft? As I understand it, this planet was originally created in Ursa Minor and was brought here. You don't think that's possible? Look at the moon. Look at Phobos, aka the Death Star, and Deimos, both around Mars. Both have fixed orbits that defy all laws of science, with only one side facing the planet. Plus you have two satellites of Saturn, Janus and Epimetheus, sharing the same orbit. They are about the same distance from the planet and the orbit about the same speed. However, they never overtake each other or collide. Technically, astronomers say that they are in a 1.1 orbital resonance or a horseshoe orbit. These cannot be explained away as some anomaly, because they are not. They were driven there, as in hollowed out craft and placed in specific orbits for specific purposes, none of which was beneficial to us. Back to our heat source and Earth. Out of the North Pole comes a torus field, looks like an apple, and it goes down to the equator. Out of the South Pole is the same torus field that goes up to the equator. So both torus fields meet at the equator. Now, if correct, the source of those torus emanating from vents at each pole is carrying heat. It then explains why the equator is the hottest region of this planet. The northern and southern lights seen at both poles is the elements from the inner heat source coming from within the planet itself. Remember also that our planet is stated to be 23 degrees off centre. So if the sun was the heat source, the equator would not run around the centre of the globe, but would be angled at 23 degrees and would be in a wave pattern to resemble the wobble the Earth does due to being off its axis. Another theory of mine is how the flood was caused. Sea levels are 400 feet higher now than in some places in the past. Ice melting does not equate to 400 feet. So this got me thinking. And in the Bible it says this on the 7 days story of creation. Item 6. Then God said, "Let there be a canopy between bodies of water, separating the bodies of water from bodies of water." So God made a canopy that separated water beneath the canopy from the water above it. And this is what happened. God called that canopy sky. The twilight and the dawn were the second day. Then God said, "Let the water beneath the sky come together into one area and let dry ground appear." And that is what happened. God called the dry ground land, and he called the water that had come together oceans. And God saw how good it was. So, the God created water between the land and also in the sky. An ocean in the sky. Well, that throws the scientific explanation of gravity into the poop pot, doesn't it? Now, a few things are stated here. What was the purpose of the sky ocean? Was it to block alleged radiation from the sun via an atmosphere? Or, given water is reflective, create the holographic image screen? Given Draco elements of the Anunnaki, they warned one of their own, Noah, yes, he was one of them, to build an ark, and suggests it was they who were involved in the water canopy / mirror tech / hologram. Now, most know they were messing with genetics here, and why part of our brain is called the reptilian cortex. This is the chatter part of your brain you are trying to quieten with meditation. Their genetics program was not going well, or was considered against galactic rules. This could be the story of the fallen angels mating with the women here, but we're unsure at this point. And so, They decided to wipe out the abomination they created by dropping the water canopy in a deliberate act. How else would they know the deluge was going to happen otherwise? So they dropped the water veil from the sky. This could also describe the possible 40 days of nights and nights of rain possibility. Something else to consider is maybe the ark was not a boat on the ocean on the planet, but the ark in the sky ocean before it fell. In other words, it was a spacecraft. This was hinted at in the TV series The 100. Right, light up, light up. Yes, we all have to light up. The path forward for mankind. This is the final portion of this show today. The knowledge of who and what we are, and denying us access to certain abilities, limiting our learning, is or was the ultimate goal of the Cabal to prevent us moving on to a full evolutionary level, which ultimately leads us to an advancement of our species. Eventually, we will attain a new understanding of everything and advance this civilization way beyond the current limitations it and we have imposed on ourselves. We will have our own rebirth and will venture out into the cosmos as we should have done many thousands of years ago. But a mixture of our own stupidity, interference via AI, rogue ETs, Draco, service to self-hive-minded humans who chose to keep that technology all to themselves. Yes, you, SSP, you steaming pile of excrement that you are, with your superior attitude and your so-called superior Aryan race bullshittery. Your group has gone so far up its own ass, you can pull your own teeth out. You sold us out. We must learn the lessons of the past and the inherent dangers technology represents. One has to think of the future and seek less of instant gratification that riddles and unbalances our everyday lives. When we succeed, then we will reach a new and advanced level of being and understanding, using the power of thought to influence the planet's ecology, weather patterns, prevent violent storms, some of which I have taken part in, and is fun to watch dissipate. Yes, you can do that. And also heal the gaping wounds the so-called elite clowns have done. It is also imperative that we should limit our own particular impact as well. What we have inflicted upon nature by our own senseless acts, and hopefully by then we will have realised our true capacity and abilities that have been dormant for so long. Ultimately, the biggest step for mankind is personal responsibility. The development and implementation of that from a personal perspective to a collective one will render much of the programs and organisations that cause us much angst on this planet obsolete with the advent of personal responsibility. If everyone was personally responsible and lived by the golden rule, why would we need spy agencies, cameras here, monitors there watching our every move? Why would we need police, justice systems, military, or even government if we all exercise personal responsibility aligned with the golden rule? This planet and the current main species on it, us, have been ascertained to be the sole guardians of this planet. But it needs a full-on change of direction for it to thrive into the life and the paradise it was meant to be. No more treating people from other countries as the enemy. Countries are an illusion anyway. When there is no individual ownership of any land, water or air, when there is no select group collecting resources they think they own, the truth is each and every one of us owns all the land, sea and air around this planet. The resources of the planet belongs to each and every one of us also. Those two important ways of operating will change everything on this planet, and the need for wars over both will cease to exist. A restoration of the basic necessities in life to be taken out of the hands of corporate shareholders and returned to the public, where the profits go towards investment and not in the hands of psychopathic, greedy shareholders. A gradual phasing out of the Orion-based monetary system known as the Babylon money magic system that creates the haves and have-nots, greed, competition, comparative mindset that is totally destroying the people of this planet. This will also be a huge leap forward for all of mankind. An end to all research based on war, mind control and weaponry. Research should only be done for the betterment of humanity and the planet. An end of slavery, poverty, food shortages, water and housing shortages, or the lack of, is a must in a civilized society. Education in itself will have to be revamped, and a proper study, learning of truth knowledge must be done in a speedy manner. Whole generations alive currently have been taught only to pass a test and not to understand the basics in life we all need and many of us lack. Education and disclosure will have to be handled in a very delicate way going forward. The stair-step approach done on my shows has served our listeners very well, and I feel that is the way forward. But I also feel full access should be given to those who wish to dig deeper. Parents, human parents, not the controlling parents, have a massive responsibility now and going forward. Now you know how they prevent our progress via technology, vaccines and the mind control called TV and school. Do something about it. Many of the children in here now were born or brought in with extra abilities designed to drive humanity forward. These are the children labelled ADHD. Please quit giving them Ritalin. The only reason these children are overreactive or overactive is down to the vibration here not matching theirs. They didn't come from here. They do and will adapt to it during late teen years. Refuse at all costs to accept vaccines, and until changes are made, then homeschooling where possible is better and safer for the child. With regards to the possibility of all humans having their full memory restored, my opinion is this: the living souls left in here have suffered greatly and have been badly damaged by being trapped in this construct. My own personal opinion is it would be better to not have full memory restored during this lifetime. The ones who were here at the beginning of the 6 loops, each lasting 13,000 years each, made a very bad choice to take the medicine offered then. But like the medicines they give us now that do nothing to fix things and do many to worsen the condition, That medicine not only removed the pain and trauma of that time, but it also erased the memory. Many of you listening to this show were not there at that time to pass full judgment on whether that decision was correct at that time. There are some listening who were here then, but no one can fully judge anyone unless you have walked in that person's shoes. But we have to say, collectively for humanity, it was a catastrophic move to make. Many are experiencing a lot of trauma and pain now, which is likely an echo of the past. If all your past memory came back in one go, I fear it will be too much to bear for the many. So from that aspect, my choice would be no full-on memory recall, but an education system with as much full truth knowledge as possible made available. That would then let the individual decide when they choose to dip their toe into the sea of truth. This method would then lead to triggers within your own Akashic record, and you'll be able to deal with it in a more controlled manner on an individual level than a forced collective. The trees chose to keep their memory, and why many choose to have an affinity with them. They hold the Akashic of here and its past. We must start to analyse both ourselves and our surroundings on a deeper level. What are your thinking processes? Do I know this for fact, or is it part of the programming? Am I operating to my highest level, and can I reach higher again? What words am I blindly using, and am I unwittingly giving my power and consent away through ignorance? Look at the words you use and what do they mean. They call it spelling for a reason. It's word magic, as in cast a spell. Have I done my inner work? Have I dealt with my shadow side? Can I throw off my self-imposed limitations? Am I service to self or service to others? And the most important, do I continue to believe the lie because it's more comfortable, or will I walk into the harsh, never-ending rabbit hole reality of truth, knowing at this point you walk a lonely path? This year is the unravelling. The last few years the onion was revealed that many couldn't see. This year the layers of the onion will peel back and reveal much. Information and disclosure, small d, will come at you from all angles. Some will be a cause of cheer, some will surprise, some will shock, and some will be very disturbing. The benefit of doing your inner work I started pushing for you all to do in May of 2015 is for this time. The key to working through it all, being calm. Don't let your emotions run one way or the other. Stay in the centre, calm and balanced. If it gets too much, reach out to others in the group, or take a step back and go in observer mode. Once all the layers of the onion is stripped bare and we clear the parasitic operators, then it's up to us to plant the seed again and create our own layers in our image, preferably one in harmony and in a caring and sharing capacity. Nature always has a way of rebalancing, and that is what is taking place now. I can assure you we went right to the wire here, with the possibility of a full reset of the planet minus humans. That was the more realistic happenstance until recently than the current path of redemption we are currently on. The Council announced on December 27th, 28th last year that humanity had graduated. That is a major source of celebration of how we overcome insurmountable odds to fix humanity, the planet the solar system, the galaxy, the universe, and the cosmic tree. No small task, and much gratitude must be given to the many who have participated. Our work is not done yet, far from it. Much has to be done and achieved before we get to the paradise planet we all envision it to be. The clean-up, arrests, removals, corrections, terminations, and justice has already begun. Do not expect it to happen overnight. This is a massive undertaking that very few realise the full scale of the bullshittery here. It is beyond comprehension. But I and many, many others are doing their utmost to make the transition as smoothly and as quickly as possible. Humanity has the capacity to be the most creative and resourceful of all the living species in the cosmos. The time is now to put those abilities for the greater good of all. Recognise who and what we are. Throw off the shackles of limitations and expand in truth, honour and integrity. Be the beacon of hope and evolution that Mother Earth entrusted us to be. This is humanity's start, a journey of discovery and wonder, possibly the best times ever to be here since Lemuria. Let us not waste this opportunity to go forward and thrive, be the caring and sharing people we all know we can be. Operate in personal responsibility under the guidance of the Golden Rule. Life is very precious and beautiful, even if sometimes it seems to you cruel and unfair. No matter what happens to you, remember you have the most important things in the world: your honour, your respect and your human dignity, which nobody can discredit or take away from you. Only you can do that. Preserve them. Allow nobody to break you, and the rest of things in life can all be fixed. Throw off the shackles and propel yourself and the collective towards the brighter future we all deserve. We all have the capacity to do and be so much more. I hope today's show helps you all in that quest. Our time has come. It's our time to deliver. And the opinion of this speaker, we will prevail in our quest to provide the platform for humanity to work together for the better future for all. Stay calm, stay strong, stay prepared, and never let anyone put you in fear or in limitation. If you lead life in love and care, you will prevail. If you lead life in fear and anger, you will fail. Feel free for you to be the person you wish to be, not the person who conforms to what others want them to be. You are a multi-dimensional being operating simultaneously on many levels. You are not here to conform. You are not here to be stifled. You are not here to be enslaved. You are not here to be abused or to compete with your friends, family or neighbours. You are here to be the best you can be and do so as the crown of creation. Now go out with the confidence of who and what you are and excel in yourself, and in doing so inspire others. I open the show with fanfare for the common man, and also I am the voice. Well, I was the voice for this show. I will end it with another song called The Voice, but this time it's your voice that counts. Use it well. My name is Thomas Williams. This has been a special show for the truth, honour and integrity. I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you and goodbye.